Beware a bad moon rising. Keep to the road and you'll be safe. Stay clear of the moors, best of luck, lads. I heard nothing, nor I. David and Jack got attacked in a field, and now there's something on the rise. David lived on, but he's haunted by nightmares when the bad moon's on a rise. An American Werewolf in London came out in 1981. My, oh my, how the time has fly. But yes, I'm John Renton with a retro review of American Werewolf in London from 1981. Decided to do that fancy little intro to ruin yet another classic song, but this was written and directed by John Landis, who is fresh off of Animal House and also Blues Brothers. You remember when Jim Belushi actually, was alive? I remember that. He also did Trading Places, Landis, that is. And also, this would inspire Michael Jackson to use John Landis to basically make Thriller, Thrill the Night, and all that. And Rick Baker's makeup effects would earn him more critical acclaim. So you had David Naughton as David. I guess they didn't trust him to remember any other name. So David, you were just going to be that. We can't name you Dave. Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that. The risk is unacceptable. I'm not Dave, I'm Homer. Gotta go. And then we have Jack, not Jack Mehoff, had to get that line in there, who's played by Griffin Dunne, not Brigadoon. They are two friends backpacking in Britain. They are attacked by a werewolf after visiting a very, very remote and very creepy pub named the Slaughtered Lamb. Jack dies, Jack haunts David, and David also is going to be turned into a werewolf gradually. Fortunately, he has somebody to get him through this. That is a nurse named Alex, played by the very, very attractive at this time, Jenny Agutter, who, good grief, with respect, would be hard to resist. Also, Frank Oz was in this. And John Woodvine. So if you're not familiar with An American Werewolf in London, I pretty much just spoiled everything right there. It's one of the more iconic modern horror classics of the last, good God. This movie came out the year I was born. This arguably is the best horror movie, or best werewolf movie at least, that came out in 1981. There's this, there's Wolfen, and then there's a Howling all the way there at the rear, which is kind of where that belongs, like the end of a Human Centipede. An American Werewolf in London is not what I would call a 5-star movie. It is what I would call a very good movie that still holds up. That transformation scene is still very fucking iconic. Tremendously well done. Rick Baker, I remember being very disappointed. You read up, and he even said in interviews, very disappointed that, all the work that he put in was like just for a few seconds of film. But John Landis assured him that, hey, by the way, the fans are likely going to pop for this. They did. Once he heard the applause and once he got the accolades and he got more work. Okay, sure. All the work he did behind the scenes might not have translated fully, to like the months and months and everything. But that's the thing. All the preparation for film, do this. It paid off, though, and Rick Baker is revered as one of the best makeup artists of his time and arguably of all time. He did have a $10 million budget. That'd be $35.6 million in today's dollars. $3.7 million opening, $13.1 million in today's money. Near $31 million haul, $30.8 million, and $109.7 million in today's money. So successful. And then we got American Werewolf in Paris, which I may retro review. Depends if I want to torture myself. I have to space out the themed horror movies. Slashers I can watch almost like, one after another. If it's monster themed, I have to take it easy. Like if it's demonic possession, or if it's like, the house is possessed, or if it's like a vampire, or if it's, any kind of demon, or if it's the Invisible Man or a werewolf or a different kind of monster, I have to space that shit out. But, yeah, the Rick Baker stuff is fantastic. And John Landis working on the Thriller video is very nice. And it was actually filmed in sequence. So it wasn't like, okay, we're going to do the transformation scene here. We're going to work our ways backwards. Or we're going to do the opening scene, a bit of it, and then we're going to jump to the transformation scene, do this. No, they're going to film it in a sequence. That's nice. That's some good stuff. And we got the song Blue Moon by Bobby Vinton. That was a very fitting theme, by the way. So nice music here. I was going to do a rendition of Blue Moon and realized that I hadn't ruined a classic band like Creedence Clearwater Revival yet, so I needed to. But we see David and Jack backpacking in a sheep truck. Ew. Ha. Sorry. So sorry. And you got to keep up the moor, lads. Best of luck. Yeah, keep away from the moors. Otherwise, you will have more problems than you ever planned to have. Somewhere. The locals are less than endearing, shall we say. Yeah, food, no, this kind of stuff. But there's a pentagram, as it were. 5-pointed star, because clearly these people know all about werewolves. And even the pub lady, who I don't recall the name of, was like, hey, we really shouldn't let them go back out into the rain and the nighttime and stuff like that. They should stay in there, where I guess the wolves know not to attack. But yeah, beware of the moors and stay on the road. They failed to do that. And then I heard nothing, nor I. And it was kind of hilarious that Jack got attacked and David instead. Now, granted, it is a giant beast, so maybe you think that you can't do something. Grab a blunt instrument. You're in a field. You've got rocks. Or you leave your friend to get mauled, which he did. Then he tries to go back and get him. And then gets bit on the shoulder. So there we go. And then the wolf guy got shot. I'm glad they shot that guy up from at least the waist up, because I don't think I would have liked to have seen that. And again, Jenny is Nurse Alex. Look up pictures of her from the 70s and even the 80s. I mean, my word. My word. Very, very attractive woman. So, Dr. Hirsch, John Woodvine, he means well, but he's also a very direct and very dry British doctor. And, by the way, you've been in a coma for 3 weeks and your buddy has already had his funeral. So there you go. Mr. Collins basically shows up from the embassy, and despite the fact that David is not handling this very well, somehow nobody thinks to maybe listen to the guy. Now, granted, it does sound fanciful that he's saying, it wasn't a man that attacked us, it was a monster. And there we are. And then we get a couple cops that do, one that does some bumbling comedy, putting the bedpan puzzle together. It's like a Matryoshka doll. Scotland Yard basically sweeps this whole thing under the fucking rug. And then David is having nightmares where he's like naked in the woods and attacking Bambi's father. First the mother got shot, and then Bambi's father. That motherfucker can't catch a break. Speaking of which, I will be doing Bambi the Reckoning, and I will also be doing the Peter Pan Neverland Nightmare horror movies at some point when I get time. Because I hate myself. They can't be worse than Screamboat. They honestly can't be. They probably could be, but I refuse to believe it. So, basically, it's a quick romance between, Alex and David. A very quick romance. She basically just grabs his head and jerks it around and everything, and then he opens up for food. By the way, I run a clean show. I don't. Could she slap me next? No, I have no issue. Dr. Hirsch basically, he hears his claims, but he's kind of dismissive of them. And then he's just having more feverish nightmares, such as, he's hearing a story from goddamn, Alex. She's reading a book, and then suddenly he just has an 80s dream. It's like a trauma thing. If trauma was actually good, of like almost Nazi zombies shooting him and his family and all that. And then suddenly one of them, he wakes up and suddenly one of them attacks Alex, and then he wakes up again. Holy shit. Double nightmare twist. And basically he's seen Jack as a corpse. Nice body horror effects, some good humor here. He feels bad that he let Jack die. To be fair, Jack was pretty much a goner, even if he didn't run away. But have you ever talked to a corpse? It's boring. I'm lonely. And you gotta take your own life before you start killing, because the full moon's in 2 days. Meanwhile, Alex basically just decides to let this almost complete stranger from another country stay at her flat. That's what they call it there in the UK, isn't it? And then basically she'd be hard to resist, is all I'm just going to say. She would be very hard to resist. They basically end up having a little bit of the sex that people had in the 80s, evidently, where they did a lot of coke and they voted for Ronald Reagan. Do. And he keeps seeing Jack. She takes off for work while he keeps seeing Jack and panicking. Dr. Hirsch goes to the slaughtered lamb for answers. Kind of gets him from some bumbling fool, but just a little bit. It's like, that's enough. I don't know what accent that was. Irish or something. I don't have a clue. But the boy will change. He will absolutely change. They're building this well, but to me, they got to get to the wolf stuff at some point, because this is only like a 97-minute movie. And you got to get to the wolf stuff at some point. I understand building your story, but still. There's an orange cat that seemingly is fine because it's never seen again. And then he ends up locked out of the flat, gets into the window, closes the window after seeing the orange cat, and watches the first ever television in British history. My God, Alexander Graham Bell would have invented that after he invented the telephone, but not very long after. Bad Moon Rising montage, and then we get the iconic transformation scene, which I can't show footage of. I know some people have tuned into my deal and are wondering why I don't show footage. Two things. One, lack of proper software and everything, and lack of wanting to put, footage in there and run the risk, even of fair use, of having to fight copyright claims. That's pretty much why. Generally, I figure if people have seen the movie, or they have a general idea of the movie, especially if it's older, they'll tune in and they'll just want to hear what some idiot has to say. And then there's this one part. I didn't mean to call you Meatloaf, Jack, as he's like transforming and doing all this. And David killed a couple, killed a lot of people. That was actually kind of funny. At least it was funny to me. There are these people that are trying to play this prank. He ends up killing that couple, which is kind of hilarious. Hirsch basically talks to Alex once he finds out that, oh, you decided to take a patient home. Well, that's okay. That's probably not ethical, but whatever. David's killing people while Hirsch is trying to talk to Alex and find out answers. The guy on the subway, or the guy leaving the subway tunnels, through subway tunnels and everything, that's pretty good. That's a very deep subway, by the way. That's a very deep subject. And it's not as great of a tunnel scene as, we got in Possession, which also came out in 1981. Now that I think about it, a lot of horror movies came out in 1981. Possession, of course, was the best of them. One of the most disturbing movies. I don't know what the fuck that director was on about. No wonder the star and Isabella and Sam Neill had to essentially get therapy because of that. But he ends up killing people and then ends up in the zoo, the wolf enclosure, no less. And then one of the funniest lines where he's basically talking to a boy, trying to get some coverage so he can take something, but he says, a naked American man stole my balloons. What? Not dialogue you often hear, but there we go. Now, we're rushing to the conclusion, by the way, because we're 20-something minutes left. 25 minutes, something like that. He now feels more charged after eating people. He feels like, getting with Alex a little bit more. Could you blame him? And basically, we just get some, we get a little more of just Alex trying to reason with David. David full on snapping, freaking out, trying to get arrested. Because it's it really is a hard shift once he realizes what's happening and what he has done. So he tries to get this British cop to arrest him. He starts shouting out some words and everything. He calls Prince Charles a slur that I will not repeat here. It's British slang for cigarettes, I will say that much. Please don't put it in the comments. I don't want you to get banned. And then Jack basically invites him into an adult film theater where there is a very, very nice British woman with a big rack getting railed, seemingly. We don't really see, we see the rack. Very nice. And he's talking to Jack, sees all his victims and everything. They suggest ways of him taking his own life. Gone to the temple, possibly sleeping pills, walk in front of something, whatever, do all this stuff. Well, unfortunately, he doesn't get a chance to do any of that stuff because he starts to transform and tears everybody up. The few people that were in that theater, by the way, and the usher that I swear was the same guy that was the orderly at the hospital, if not, it was his brother. He is frigging out, and this cop basically ends up closing the goddamn, gate that they have, this giant gate where it's basically, the wolf's in there. Well, then the wolf ends up getting out, ends up tearing the guy's head off, and starts marching through. And this is where, okay, some of the effects look a little bit dated because it's very obvious it's a wolf puppet type thing, or some kind of animatronic, but very, early animatronic, and caused a bunch of wrecks. They blew the budget with all the wrecks and everything, which was kind of hilarious. Bodies falling, bodies getting run over, and that kind of stuff. So utilizing a $10 million budget pretty well. And some nice stuff here, and basically David, as a wolf, ends up going into the longest alleyway that I think they have in Britain, or at least London. And Alex is trying to reason with him, while John Woodvine, Dr. Hirsch, is trying to stop her. And she basically tells him she loves him, but this has to end. Basically, the only way these undead people can move on is if he ends up basically dead. So somehow the police managed to shoot past her, hit him, and not even graze her. Crack shots there. And he's dead, and then we literally smash cut to the end of the movie. So there you go. That's the end of that. I made a retro review, An American Werewolf in Paris, which was really terrible from what I recall. But yeah, that's An American Werewolf in London. It's fun. It's pretty good. It still, it has some really great moments, especially that iconic transformation scene. Again, to me, not a 5-star movie. I'd say 4. I put up a Letterboxd review if you want to check out, just a bit of type stuff. I don't obviously transcribe everything in video to Letterboxd. I give a long form review here and a shorter form review there. But nevertheless, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritland. Until we backpack across the moors of Britain again, happy trails to you.